Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Stromberg with the Fulton Siefken Law Firm. I serve as chair of the Olathe Chambers Legislative Committee, and it's my honor to moderate today's forum featuring the candidates for Kansas House District 30, which includes portions of Northeast Olathe and South Central Lenexa. On behalf of the Johnson County Public Policy Council, a collaboration of all 10 area local chambers, and in particular on behalf of today's co-hosts, the Lenexa and Olathe Chambers, I'd like to welcome everyone. Joining me today are incumbent Kansas Representative Brandon Woodard, the Democratic candidate, and Laura Williams, the Republican candidate. You can read about their backgrounds and experience at our Public Policy Council website, www.votejoco.com. Also join me as the timekeeper is Ashley Sherard from the Lenexa Chamber. I'm going to briefly talk about the format today, which will include 2-minute opening statements by the candidates, a moderated question and answer period, during which the candidates will each have 1.5 minutes to respond, followed by the end with a 1-minute closing statement. Today's questions, which focus on business issues, were developed by the Public Policy Council. Due to time constraints, there will be no follow-up questions, formal rebuttal time, or viewer participation, so the webinar's Q&A and chat functions have been disabled. Candidate speaking order has been randomly determined in advance with the candidates and will rotate throughout the program. Now let's begin with our opening statements. A reminder, each candidate has 2 minutes to present the opening statement. I'll ask Brandon to start.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for having us to the Olathe and Lenexa Chambers and the Greater Johnson County Public Policy Council. The chamber events are always my favorite. 7:15 a.m. breakfasts are a little much, but I appreciate the opportunity to be able to engage with the business community. It's very important here in District 30. For 2 years, I've had the incredible opportunity to represent District 30. In my first term, we have professionalized constituent services and outreach. And I feel like, one, that's important because our job as your state representative is to bring your state government back to our neighborhoods. I've built a reputation for being a consensus builder, working directly with anyone in the room to find consensus and find solutions, regardless of political party. We've also become the most transparent, accessible, and informative representative in Kansas. I've had over 36 listening sessions across the district, 2 a month, to make sure that I'm hearing directly from the people of our district. Some of the people who come most frequently, maybe it's because of the free coffee, don't always agree with me on everything, but I appreciate hearing from them because I think it's important that we listen to everyone here in our district. I've had weekly newsletters during the legislative session to provide updates on what happened in Topeka, how we voted, what's coming before the committees that I'm on. And I think it's been a really great opportunity to connect with people in a way that they haven't always had from their state government. In 2019, a non-election year, we knocked on homes of more than 5,000 voters. People thought we were crazy. They said, it's not even election year, why are you here? But I feel like that's our job, is to go to Topeka to represent them, but come back, bring government back to them, learn from them, learn what's important to them, and be the best voice that we can for them when we're in the State House in Topeka. Thanks so much for the opportunity, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Brandon. Now we're going to turn to Laura for her opening statement.
Well, thank you, Ashley and Natalie and Matt, for just coordinating all of this. I'm just excited to share a little bit about me and my experiences that I've had and even why I'm here running for state representative. First off, I grew up in Lenexa. I graduated from Shawnee Mission Schools in the University of Kansas with a communication studies degree. A week before graduating, I married my husband, Kyle, and we've been married now for about 5 years. And when we were starting to think about our future and where we wanted to plant roots, we wanted to go back to the place where I grew up. And so as we started thinking about our family, thinking about both of us are entrepreneurs at heart and where we wanted to start our small businesses, this district is where we wanted to plant our roots in. And so, like I said, I am a young mom. I have 2 kids who keep me very busy, and I'm also a small business owner. My husband and I started a digital marketing firm as I was a mom working from home, and it was just a way that I could make ends meet each month, and now it has turned into something that supports our family and is continuing to grow. I also have a home decor business where, along with my partner, where we've designed a line of home goods and we do virtual consulting. Both of these businesses were birthed from problems that we had. So from helping small businesses from small to medium figure out how do they market to their community, to how do we help people have homes that are inviting. And it was cool to be able to have those businesses be the solution to the answer. But I've worn many hats when it comes to being a mom and a small business owner and finding solutions to problems I never thought I could. And so I'm excited to just even be the Republican candidate for Lenexa and Olathe, and I want to be a true representation for them at the Capitol.
Thank you, Laura. Next, we're going to proceed to the question and answer portion. This is a reminder. Candidates will have 1.5 minutes each to respond, and the speaking order will rotate with each question. Based on our really fancy drawing, we're going to be starting off our first question with Laura. Question number 1 is this. As a candidate, what are your top 3 policy issues?
Well, from what we have experienced post-COVID-19, I think rebuilding our economy and protecting our jobs in Kansas should be one of our #1 priorities, and making sure the people here in Lenexa and Olathe have established jobs and have that security. Also, coming to strengthening our public schools. What we've experienced the last few months, I think we all realize that teachers are essential, and we need to figure out how to lessen the burden for them and ensure that we can keep our public schools fully funded, and that our kids can have the same upbringing that I had when I was involved in Shawnee Mission schools. And lastly, lowering healthcare costs. This is something that we face every single day with our healthcare. It's like a mortgage each month that we pay. And so how can we lower healthcare costs for people here in the district, in the state of Kansas, and lessen the burden for them?
Thank you. Brandon, moving to you, same question. As a candidate, what are your top 3 policy issues?
Absolutely. Well, we're in a global pandemic with unprecedented health concerns. And so I think one of the most immediate things that should have already been done, because it's both humane, but the Kansas solution to part of our problem, is expanding Medicaid. Pre-pandemic, there are more than 150,000 Kansans that fell into the coverage gap. We hear in Topeka all the time about a 25% match rate from the federal government or 50% tax rate. We've got to expand Medicaid because it costs the state 10% or reimbursed 90% at the federal level. We've got to look at things like fully funding our public K-12 schools. We're facing a more than $1 billion budget deficit going into the 2021 legislative session. I want to go there because I want to be part of the group solving the problems and making the tough decisions. We've got to make sure that we protect the funding formula. We saw even in 2019 and beginning in 2020 in the legislative session, plans to undo the funding formula that finally met the Supreme Court's decade-long lawsuit, and we were able to end that. And I think we've got to work with Governor Kelly to rebuild the Kansas economy. That's going to take listening to science and facts to ensure that everyone here in our district has the opportunity to get back safely. But also, we know more about this pandemic now than we did in March when everything shut down. We've got to keep people safe and continue rebuilding our economy for during COVID and beyond.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, this one is back at you, Brandon. How would you propose to balance the state budget? What specific budget cuts would you support, and what revenue enhancements would you consider, if any?
Definitely. Well, that's the $1 billion question, right? We're facing a deficit that we have not seen in several years here in Kansas. And so going back to this administration, I want to give kudos to Governor Kelly. She made very tough budget decisions going into the 2019 and 2020 legislative sessions, proposing a budget with one of the highest ending balances in 20 years. The legislature then enhanced it, which there were several good things that we did, but we also need to make sure that going forward, we've got folks in the room that are going to make the tough decisions. As far as revenue enhancements, I would make sure that we're doing things like sports wagering, what would bring millions of dollars in that's currently on the black market being bet here to Kansas, and we can benefit and fund our schools with that. We've got to look at things like collecting sales taxes for online purchases, putting our online retailers on the same playing field as our local businesses here in District 30. Looking at things like legalizing medical marijuana. We don't currently tax medication, but we've got to make sure that if we are, as an agricultural state, going to be able to continue moving forward, that's something that could generate revenue here in our state. As far as cuts, everything is going to have to be on the table. We've got to scrutinize the budget enhancements going forward while also maintaining the services that everyone here in Kansas needs.
Thank you. Laura, same question. How would you propose to balance the state budget? What specific budget cuts would you support? And what revenue enhancements would you consider, if any?
Well, COVID-19 will have serious impacts on how we look at our budget in 2021. And due to the unknown of what even rests in 2020 looks like, I know we only have a couple months left, but knowing the specific budget cuts would be hard to say. But I do believe we need to respect our taxpayers and focus on not increasing the burden they're already carrying by raising taxes on the middle class.
Thank you. Laura, we're going to return to you for the third question. What would you do to grow and develop the state's workforce?
Awesome. Well, first, I think that we need to be able to focus on our businesses that we are currently experiencing from post-COVID, and how can we continue to help them rebuild and get them back up to make sure that we keep those jobs that we have and then continue to grow there. Also, how are ways that we can attract and secure infrastructure for our businesses. Our local businesses are the foundation of our economy. They supply the jobs. They bring a sense of community togetherness. And I plan to lead the charge and to ensure that our businesses have what they need and to create policies that will help them keep them viable and growing. And I think that's how we're going to see just an expansion in the workplace.
Thank you. Brandon, same question. What would you do to grow and develop the state's workforce?
Yeah, well, as the only freshman member of the legislature that serves in committee leadership, I've been proud to be the ranking minority member on the House Higher Education Budget Committee. This is an issue that I literally ran on. Make sure that after 9 consecutive cuts to higher education, we're doing what we need to do to invest in the future workforce of Kansas. We've got to look at things like student debt relief, incentivizing retention and recruitment here in Kansas. The leaders in the rest of the country on this are states like Utah, Maine, New Hampshire, Louisiana, who are literally bringing people into their state to work and keep them there. As someone that went to a public university, graduating from KU with nearly $40,000 in debt, I know how important it is that we find solutions to ensure that folks have the opportunity to, of course, start their life here, work and spend their hard-earned money here, but that we're not saddling them with so much debt that they're not able to thrive economically. We're not going to get back to the days of investing in higher education at the levels we used to, so people didn't graduate with the debt that they do, but we've got to find Kansas solutions here. One of the reasons that this is important is because even pre-pandemic, Kansas higher education system was only going to graduate 46,000 students in 2020. At the time, there were 53,000 open jobs. So we've got to look at what we can do to make sure that Kansans are wanting to be here and that we're investing in their success as they try to start their lives and families here in Kansas.
All right, thank you. Brandon, we're going to stick with you for the next question. And this one is important one near and dear to my heart because I have 4 children going to school here in Johnson County. What are your views on funding K-12 education?
Yeah, well, one of the main reasons I ran for this in 2018 was because the district was represented by someone who voted year after year against investing in public education. I was a free and reduced lunch student during K-12 years. I only got to go to KU because I was on a Pell Grant recipient, or I was a Pell Grant recipient. I know how important it is that we invest in our public schools. Here in Kansas, we don't have mountains, we don't have oceans. What keeps people coming here is our really strong public schools and the great job opportunity. And so I think that going forward, we must protect the education formula as it's been outlined, not make changes to it, Though it's important to remember that adequately funded public schools is not the same thing as exceptionally funded public schools. So we've got to continue to give them the resources that they need while also supporting our local school boards who are making the decisions day to day. I can't even imagine what our teachers and parents and families are going through with the difficult decisions they're making with learning and adjusting to online learning, but that's exactly why we've got to continue making the investments in our public school system.
Thank you. Laura, same question. What are your views on funding K-12 education?
Well, Matt, like you were saying, it's a near and dear issue to your heart. It's also a personal issue for me. One, just being a product of the Shawnee Mission schools and having my kids attending Sunflower Elementary in the near future. I want to see our schools continue to thrive and create new ways to reach the needs of our community. I want to see them continue to be fully funded, and I'm committed to making sure teachers feel equipped. We're focusing on academic excellence and growing our early childhood programs.
Thank you. Question 5, we'll begin with Laura. What types of economic development policies will you support to encourage job growth and business expansion in Kansas?
Well, one, we want to see just have a state where businesses want to come to the state, they want to grow their businesses here, and that brings more jobs to us. And so even for me personally, being a small business owner and coming from a family of small businesses, we need to focus on ways that we can continue to help create policy that will attract these businesses to come to Kansas. I live in Lenexa, and right down the road we have City Center, which has been just an awesome economic development and a great resource for the people here in the district. So how can we continue to attract new developments like that to draw people here to Lenexa and Olathe and make them see that this is a worthwhile place to start their families and start their futures and grow. And so I think investing in just even our businesses and making sure that they have the infrastructure to be successful even helps the people here in the district with jobs and helping our community.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over to Brandon. What types of economic development policies will you support to encourage job growth and business expansion in Kansas?
Well, let me first say that I am very proud of Governor Kelly for tapping David Toland as our Secretary of the Department of Commerce. He is no stranger to Lenexa and Olathe. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were celebrating the groundbreaking of Phase 2 expansion of Thermo Fisher Scientific. Under Secretary Toland's leadership and Governor Kelly's administration, they've worked on successfully securing 157 economic development projects, had over $3 billion in capital investments here in Kansas, and created over 16,000 jobs. What they're doing is working. We've got to continue to give Secretary Toland the tools that he needs, as well as getting our state and local governments out of the way, yet working together when necessary to ensure that these partnerships between our local, state, and federal governments can have the tools that they need to continue bringing jobs here in Kansas. We all know why we love Kansas. We all know why we love Lenexa. While I live in Lenexa, I love Olathe too. We all know why we're here, and we've got to continue to giving everyone the tools to continue making this a place that's growing. Our district, District 30, is one of the youngest in the state. 90% of the people that live in District 30 are under age 65. It's a majority renter district. People are coming here because of the opportunity that our chambers and our businesses are creating here in in Johnson County.
Thank you. Brandon, you're going to lead us off on the next question. What are your views on state tax policy, being as specific as you can in the short amount of time you're allotted?
Oh, that's everyone's favorite topic in an election year. I think we've had far too many major changes to our tax code in recent years. We need to ensure that we're going to have a fair, predictable tax structure that ensures that everyone knows how much they're paying. That means opposing retroactive tax policy. That means making sure that all of the stakeholders are involved in those decisions. But one of the problems that we have here in Kansas is that for personal income taxes, we have a very regressive structure. For single filers, we have 3 tax brackets: poverty, poor, and everyone else. $30,000 is the highest tax bracket for single filers in Kansas. And while I'm not suggesting changing that, we've got to look at overall the comprehensive tax structure here in Kansas. Someone that's a minimum wage worker working full-time, 40 hours a week at minimum wage in Kansas is already making $15,080 a year before deductions. That puts them in the second highest tax bracket. We've got to look at how we're balancing out everyone's fair share, whether that is a tax bracket at the $500,000 level or whatever. I want to continue being in the room when those decisions are made and listening to everyone here in our district, because I always think about how does this impact, of course, the people here in our district, but District 30 is home to almost as many businesses as it is households. So we've got to make sure that all the stakeholders are in the room.
Thank you. Laura, I'll kick the question over to you. What are your views on state tax policy, being as specific as you can?
So if we want to see the state of Kansas become an attractive place to build your future, which is what we've been talking about, we must first focus on how our tax policy compares on a national level. For instance, we need to focus on our high sales tax on food and capping our ever-rising property taxes. Our food sales tax is one of the highest in the nation, and we need to find solutions to these answers. So big picture, I think, is just looking at different ways that we can find ways to help out not only our businesses, but the very people here in House District 30.
All right, thank you. Laura, you're going to lead us off on the next question. You guys have both touched a little bit on this issue in your previous answers, but what are your views on healthcare policy?
Well, my priorities are protecting Medicaid for those who need it the most and finding ways that we can lower our healthcare costs. With Medicaid in specific, we have a significantly long wait lists and problems with access to critical care among the disabled and chronically ill and children right now, which is of great concern. I think we run the risk with the wrong type of Medicaid expansion plan and could ultimately crowd out those who need it the most. And when I approach this issue, I want to be able to look at it through the lens of making sure we benefit those who are in need and working to find solutions to protect Medicaid and make it better for those who face significant health and financial challenges. Also, what are creative ways that we can be able to lower the healthcare costs? Like I stated earlier, ours is more than our mortgage each month. And so what are ways that we can lower healthcare costs and create different solutions? I know with post-COVID, we've had so many different ways to open up those wait lists of allowing providers to be able to meet with people through telehealth and expanding to other providers being able to provide care throughout the state of Kansas. So what are creative solutions that we can make for healthcare specifically?
Thank you. Brandon, I'll turn to you. What are your views on healthcare policy?
Thank you. Step one is expanding Medicaid. We have forfeited $4 billion of our tax dollars to other states by not expanding Medicaid to more than 150,000 Kansans. We are sending our money to the federal government that's going to states like Indiana, where then Governor Mike Pence signed Medicaid expansion into law. And in addition to just being the humane and Kansan thing to do during a global health pandemic, it's incredibly good for the economy here in Johnson County. That's one step. Other things that we should put on the table and consider, like we did with everything, I voted for association health plans. We've got to look at every single piece of the puzzle and ensure that we have an opportunity to provide healthcare coverage that is affordable to people. And we have to make sure that we're covering pre-existing conditions. We don't know what the future of the United States Supreme Court looks like. If the Affordable Care Act is struck down, people 26 and under no longer get to be on their parents' health plan if they're over 18. Coverage for pre-existing conditions no longer guaranteed. That's why I co-sponsored a bill in the last legislative session to ensure that we cover pre-existing conditions with every insurance policy here in Kansas. It didn't go anywhere. What we have to do is go back, make sure that we're expanding Medicaid, that we're putting every solution on the table, and making sure that regardless of what we do, we are protecting coverage for pre-existing conditions here in Kansas.
All right, thank you. We're reaching our final question of the day, and Brandon, you're going to lead us off on this one. What do you believe most distinguishes you from your opponent in this race?
Well, my plant game is not as on point as Laura's is, but I'm working on it. I would just say here in District 30, we are one of the youngest districts in the state. And I have worked my tail off to make sure that people know that regardless of whether or not we agree on everything, you're going to have a voice. I've been the person picking up hundreds of phone calls from people who are seeking help with the unemployment system. I've been the one responding to their emails, which sometimes they're surprised about. I've been done everything I can to make sure we're a true voice for the people here in District 30, and done everything I can to ensure that they know how to reach me, they know what I'm doing, and that they are confident in my ability to bring things back here to our district. I'd say the thing that is the most defining feature of me, I guess, is that I've literally lived through the struggles people are going through. I'm where I am because of the government system and the wraparound services for our public education and public university systems. I wouldn't be where I am without that. And so I know what they're going through. I know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck because I've been there. But because of the things that we're working on in Topeka, we're going to continue to not just make sure that people like me have that opportunity, but every single person in Kansas has an equitable foundation to start their life, because we want to make sure they have what they need to succeed and to live here, work here, and spend their hard-earned money here in Johnson County.
Thank you. Laura, what do you believe distinguishes you from your opponent in this race, or most distinguishes you?
Well, like I've stated throughout this forum, you know a little bit about me. You know I'm a small business owner experiencing the economic impact this virus has had on our nation. And I'm a mother of 2 young, crazy kids who have interrupted many Zoom calls that I've had. And I'm trying to navigate what childcare looks like and what education looks like for them. My healthcare costs are astronomical. And so when it comes to what makes me different than my opponent is I'm just like you. I am knee deep in the issues that House District 30 is facing every single day. And I want to make sure that Lenexa and Olathe are the ones represented at the Capitol and our voices are heard. So that's why I'm running. And I think that's what distinguishes me most from my opponent.
Well, thank you, candidates. Now you'll each have 1 minute to present your closing statements, given in reverse order, of course, of our opening statements. So Laura, will have you start us off.
Well, thank you guys so much for just allowing both Brandon and I to come and meet together and share just where we stand on the issues. For me, what I've experienced post COVID-19 in 2020 is I've heard stories of people trying to struggle to make ends meet, even personally here in our home. Just trying to figure out how can we keep our dream, our small business afloat. Hearing from our neighbors and the people in the community that are like family to me, their issues that they're facing when it comes to healthcare. And I want to be the solution for them. I want to be able to be the neighbor that they run over to tell them their problems to, and that I can be a true voice for the district. And so it is just even a privilege to be able to be considered as a Republican candidate for House District 30. And I'm excited to be the voice for Lenexa and Olathe in 2021.
Thank you, Laura. Brandon.
Thank you all so much for the opportunity. Thanks to Lenexa and Olathe Chambers for allowing us to do this. I would just commend my opponent on our ability to have a civil discussion, unlike what we saw earlier this week with the presidential debate. I'm excited to continue being your representative. I think that the biggest thing that I think about when I'm in Topeka, we get to push yes or no, which sometimes means 12 things either way you go. People are going to call you crazy or say that you disagree with you because of how you voted. When I'm in Topeka, I'm thinking about the small business owner that needed help getting back on Medicaid so they could get their cancer treatments. I'm thinking of the school bus driver who needed help navigating unemployment. I'm thinking of the small business that reached out and needed assistance getting some of the emergency assistance that we were able to provide with the COVID relief packages. That's what I'm doing in Topeka, and that's what I'm asking to continue being your voice in Topeka for 2 more years. So thank you all so much for the opportunity, and I appreciate the questions.
Thank you, Brandon. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our forum for House District 30, featuring candidates Representative Brandon Woodard and Laura Williams. On behalf of the Lenexa and Olathe Chambers of Commerce and the entire Johnson County Public Policy Council, thank you for participating in today's program and providing voters with the information that's important to hear. This forum has been recorded and will be posted on the Public Policy Council's public nonpartisan voter website, www.votejoco.com, where you can find more information about candidates, videos of other candidate forums, and advanced voting details. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.